Throughout its history, Major League Baseball's postseason has always been affectionately referred to as October baseball. However, lately, the World Series ending has been spilling over into the early portion of November, meaning the World Series is now ending approximately 3 weeks later than it was about 50 years ago, presenting new weather challenges for Major League Baseball. On November 1st, 2001, history was made. Shortly after the clock struck midnight, Derek Jeter hit a walk-off home run to win Game 4 of the World Series for the New York Yankees. And for the first time ever, Major League Baseball had been played in the month of November. In 2001, baseball was only being played in November as a result of the end of the season being pushed back a week due to the events of September 11th. On November 4th, the Arizona Diamondbacks won Game 7 of the World Series, and it was thought that Major League Baseball would never be played in November again. That was until 2007, when Game 7 of the World Series was scheduled for November 1st. However, the World Series that year only lasted 4 games, so the 7th game in November was unnecessary. It was not until 2009, when the Yankees defeated the Phillies in 6 games, that November baseball returned, with Game 6 being played on November 4th. Now, with the wild card round of the playoffs a permanent fixture, as well as the World Baseball Classic on the calendar every 4 years, the World Series spilling over into November has become commonplace. To this date, a total of 11 games have been played in November, and if 2017's edition of the Fall Classic goes the full 7 games, Game 7 of the World Series will be played on November 1st. A far cry from the olden days when the World Series typically wrapped up in mid-October. This presents Major League Baseball with an interesting problem. The later the season goes, the colder it gets, especially for teams located in places such as Minnesota, Colorado, New York, and Boston, who all play in outdoor stadiums without retractable roofs in colder climates. The most glaring case is Minnesota, who in early November only reaches into the mid-40s for their average high, and an average low below the freezing mark. The Twin Cities on average see their first snowfall on November 2nd of each season. On the other hand, Denver, while on average is warmer in early November than Minnesota, sees its first snowfall in mid-October, and it also has sub-freezing low temperatures in early November. Obviously, Major League Baseball does not want to play the most important games of the season in cold and snowy conditions. Similar cold, potentially snowy conditions can also be found in multiple other cities, including Chicago, Cleveland, and Detroit. One potential solution is to move up the start of the season into late March, thus moving the World Series back into the middle or end of October. But this solution presents its own challenges as well. Weather at the end of March is far from ideal baseball weather either, and recently snow has canceled games in Minnesota, Cleveland, Chicago, and Colorado, causing teams to have to take extra road trips later in the season or play double headers. These cancellations took place in early April, and moving opening day into late March would only increase the risk of more cancellations due to wintry weather. And these cancellations present a scheduling challenge to potentially have to reschedule multiple games each season as opposed to just potentially scheduling 1 or 2 World Series games. Now, while most of the cold weather cities on average are warmer in the end of March as opposed to the beginning of November, there is one notable exception: Minneapolis-St. Paul. Twin Cities' average high in the end of March is only in the lower 40s, with the average low dipping down into the 20s. Additionally, with the early start to the season, games are going to be a certainty in the cold weather cities, whereas only 2 teams make it to the World Series every year, making it less likely that these teams would have to host games in the colder weather. With the permanent addition of extra rounds of the playoffs, there isn't an easy solution to prevent having to play World Series games into November without putting the beginning of the season firmly in winter's grasp in several locations. So for now, all MLB can hope to do is to avoid a matchup between the Colorado Rockies and Minnesota Twins in the World Series, which might feature a lot of snow. For Up in the Air, I'm Brian Mastro.